Hey everyone, my name is Sheena Yap Chan. Super excited to be here today. Hope everyone has been enjoying the past couple of talks. Super excited to be here. So for you, those of you who may or may not know me, my name is Sheena Yap Chan. I'm a Wall Street Journal bestselling author on confidence and leadership. And today I'll be talking about bridging the confidence gap, redefining leadership, confidence, culture, and the power of visibility. So I hope you're excited. For today's talk. I know, when it comes to confidence, it's something that we all go through, we all need, especially being in this industry. So I'm going to share my screen and let's get this started. I just want to make sure that I have the right one. All right, can everybody see my screen? Okay. All right, so I'm going to start. Sorry, a little bit of a technical difficulty. Okay, so bridging the confidence gap, redefining leadership, confidence, culture, and the power of visibility. So when you embrace who you are, you give others permission to do the same. So the new face of leadership. Leadership isn't just a title, it's about how you show up, it's using your voice, it's owning your impact. If you don't see someone like you in leadership, be the one who steps up first. I know that's easier said than done, but for me, that's how I started. For me, representation was really important. Growing up in Toronto, I never saw anybody in the media that looked like me. And so it was important for me to be the change, to step up, to change the way things are. And so because of that, I've been able to speak on different stages, write a couple of books, and let's get to the confidence gap. So, what is the confidence gap, right? Here it's all about learning. It's a disconnect between how capable you are and how capable you believe. So, for mostly especially women, a lot of us are more than capable to go out there, but sometimes what really stops us from moving forward is how we perceive ourselves. And because of that, we have less women in leadership. My latest book is also called Bridging the Confidence Gap. And part of the reason why I wrote that was because the World Economic Forum mentioned that total gender parity would be achieved at the earliest in the year 2154. And that, unfortunately, that's when I wrote the book, which was last summer. So currently, it's actually delayed 4 more years, which means it's not going to be till 2158. And so when you think about that, it's probably about 5 generations before we see total gender parity. And at this point, it might still get delayed. So that's why the confidence gap is important to bridge it, so we can have more women in leadership. And of course, we want to shave off a lot of the years to achieve total gender parity. So confidence, is not competence. The reality is people who appear confident are often perceived as more capable regardless of their actual skill. Studies show that confidence heavily influences who gets hired, promoted, or trusted to lead. Meanwhile, many high capable women and marginalized individuals hesitate to speak up or step forward, not because they lack ability, but because they've been conditioned to doubt it. So sometimes it can be your upbringing, it could be how society has treated you. And so it's really important to unlearn the things that we've been taught. Cultural conditioning starts early, right? Being in Asian culture, we were taught to never make any noise, stay in the background, do as you're told. And so for me, it took a lot of time to unlearn these things. So messages like don't brag, stay humble, or be grateful, don't make waves are often passed down, especially in immigrant, Asian, and underrepresented communities. The well-meaning lessons can unintentionally suppress self-expression and ambition. So if you ever felt that way, feel free to share that if there's a chat. Also, confidence becomes seen as arrogance, especially for women and people of color. I know sometimes when we go out there and forge our own path, we're told it's too much, too confident, too ambitious. And when a man does it, they're confident and courageous. So it's important to keep pushing forward despite those labels, because in the end we're going to end up normalizing these things. It's important for us to forge our own path, to learn to be okay, to push through labels. And I know it's easier said than done, but if we don't do it, it's just going to be the same cycle all over again. Internalized self doubt. Over time, these messages take root, such as, I'm not ready, someone else knows more, what if I get it wrong? We've all been there, myself included. I always felt like there was other people who were better at me at doing this. I was too old or not good enough. And because that self doubt can take control of us, we end up resisting. So, this isn't a personal flaw, it's a systematic outcome of exclusion and underrepresentation. And the result, talented people staying silent, playing small, waiting for permission that never comes. And so I don't want any of that to happen to you. You're more capable than you realize. Sometimes playing small really hurts us, and waiting for permission, we just keep waiting. So this is why taking action is so important. And here's a stat from KPMG Women's Leadership Study. 1 in 3 women avoid speaking up at work due to fear of being wrong or judged. And I totally understand that because I was like that when I used to work a office job. I've spoken to a lot of women who are in meetings and tell me that, they have this good idea, but they're too afraid to share it in a business meeting. And then the person beside them shared the same exact idea that she was thinking and was praised for it. So I want you to realize if you have that great idea to share it in a meeting or, just sharing it, just be okay to share it, right? There's no such thing as a stupid idea. And that fear has a cost. It holds back not just individuals, but entire teams and industries from the innovation and insight that diverse voices bring. So, identity and cultural expectations. Let's talk about the roots of confidence because it doesn't grow in a vacuum. Family messages. Many of us were raised with love, but also with silence. Keep your head down, don't talk back, let your work speak for itself. This one really resonated with me, let your work speak for itself because being in Asian culture, when I had a job, my parents would be like, just work hard and your work will speak for itself. And unfortunately, that doesn't always equate to promotions. Working hard sometimes just means working hard. It's important to work smart, learn to network, learn to create relationships. It's not just about working hard, there's more to it. These messages teach respect, but can also teach invisibility. And, for me, visibility is so important because that's how we can break barriers, create history. And of course, nobody wants to wait till 2158 for gender parity to be achieved. Societal conditioning, media, education, and workplace norms are often center one type of leadership, loud, assertive, traditionally male. I know when I started my confidence journey, I felt that way. I felt like being confident, you had to be loud and boisterous and be out there. But, you could be yourself and just go out there and be your best self. If you're an introvert, that's totally okay. So if you don't fit that mold, you may feel like you don't belong or need to change to be seen. Some model minority myths, especially in Asian communities, there's pressure to be perfect, compliant, and never cause trouble. And this myth flattens individually and discourages risk taking, mistakes, and bold moves. For so long, especially in our community, we're taught that, we never complain, we just do the work, we never ask for help. So when we do need that help, it's hard for us to do it because everyone thinks we're okay on our own. When in reality, we all need to work together. Be humble, don't brag. Humility is a value, but when it stops us from sharing our ideas, successes, or ambition, it holds us back. There's a difference between humility and invisibility. So, especially, being in aviation, like, you've done some amazing things. And I think it's important to really share that out because it shows other women too what's possible for themselves. And it's important. We need to create this domino effect so we can have more women in aviation and break barriers and make history. So the bottom line is these cultural narratives don't just influence how others see us, they shape how we see ourselves, and that affects how we show up or shrink back. Visibility is power. You can't be what you can't see. So I remind myself this all the time. When we don't see people who look like us, sound like us, or come from where we come from in leadership roles, it sends a silent message you don't belong here. And this is why, for me, visibility representation is so important because I grew up with none and I always felt like I wasn't good enough to do anything. Visibility is power. Representation changes what's possible. When women and marginalized leaders are visible, it expands the collective imagination of what leadership looks like. Every time someone sees a leader who reflects their identity, a door opens, not just in their mind, but in real life. Visibility shows others if she can do it, maybe I can too. And that's so true. I've interviewed over 800 women on the topic of confidence. And being able to share their stories and hear their stories, I just felt less alone in my own journey. They also went through a lot of trials and tribulations and challenges and was able to overcome it. And because of that, it helped me feel seen. It helped me helped me realize even in my own journey what's possible. Visibility builds influence and credibility. Being seen and heard builds trust. People remember your face, your voice, your ideas. Whether you're speaking on a panel, sharing on LinkedIn, or leading a team meeting, visibility increases perceived authority. It's so true, right? In the rule of marketing, they used to say that, in order for a person to make a buying decision, they need to see the product at least 7 times, right? Unfortunately, in the age of TikTok, Instagram, all the social media platforms that we have, it's 4 or 5 times more than that. So this is why being visible is so important. When they keep seeing who you are, keep seeing your ideas, it builds trust. The more visible you are, the more people come to you with opportunities, not because you change, but because they finally notice. Stepping into the spotlight isn't ego, it's impact. We've been taught to associate confidence with arrogance, but claiming space isn't about ego, it's about service. When you show up boldly, you make room for others to do the same. Your visibility creates a ripple effect, and I think that is so true. Sometimes we're so afraid to take up space because we're afraid of being judged, and I totally get that. But I also understand that if I don't go out there and step up, no one else will, and all it starts is one person doing it, showing up on stage, being visible. And, being visible doesn't always mean that you have to be on stage. I remember reading a story on X about a woman from Afghanistan who has a full time job. And, being working a full time job as an Afghani woman in Afghanistan ruled by the Taliban is not allowed. And so she has to take a private taxi every single day to go to her secret job because if she were to take public transportation, it could be dire consequences for her, right? So that's visibility, right? Because all it takes is one person to take that risk to show others that it's possible, and it creates a ripple effect. So even when I have moments of doubt, I remember that story and realize this woman is literally risking her life to work a job. And they have so many other rules that they're not allowed to do. Just basic human rights like stripped away. They're not allowed to show their faces in public. They're not even allowed to sing in their own homes, which is really wild considering this is 2025. Unfortunately, that's the current situation. And so this is why being visible is so important, stepping into that spotlight because there's other women and other underrepresented groups who need us, who need to see what's possible. So the bottom line is your voice, your story, your presence, it matters. And when you're visible, you're powerful. Imposter syndrome, the silent saboteur. We don't talk about it enough, but almost everyone feels it, myself included, especially women, people of color, first gen professionals, and anyone who's ever been the only one in the room. So, what does it sound like? These are some of the thoughts that can echo in our heads at the worst times. Who am I to lead? I'm not ready yet. They're going to find out I don't really belong here. I was just lucky. And so, if you ever felt like that, or if any of those thoughts have run through your head, just know you're not the only one. In fact, we deal with that a lot. And when I was writing my book, Bridging the Confidence Gap, there was a stat that mentioned 75% of the workforce, like the female workforce, deals with imposter syndrome. So you're not alone. These aren't just random insecurities, they're patterned, persistent, and reinforced by systems that weren't built for everyone. So, what it really is? Let's be clear. Imposter syndrome isn't a personal flaw, it's a symptom of exclusion. When you rarely see people like you in leadership, it's easy to assume you're the outlier and not the future. A conditioned belief, decades of messages telling us to stay quiet, stay small, stay grateful even when we've earned our place. A battle we can win. With awareness, support, and tools, we can rewire the narrative. Confidence isn't the absence of fear, it's a decision to show up anyway. That's I always say being fearless is not about having fears. It's not about having no fears. Being fearless is about feeling that fear and doing it anyway. And I know overcoming your fear can be the biggest thing you would have to overcome. Um, but when you get to that other side, it really builds up your confidence, having that courage to go for it. So reframe. You don't feel like an imposter imposter because you're unqualified. You feel like an imposter because you're doing something brave. And being in this industry, it's really brave, right? It's a risk that we have. And one of the things I like to do when it comes to utilizing imposter syndrome, I utilize it for something positive right now, right? Because for me, it means that we're taking things to the next level, we're growing as a person. And so when we think when we level up, all these feelings are going to come up. It's going to feel uncomfortable. We're going to have that doubt because it's something we've never gone through before. So I want you to realize, when you're going through those thoughts, it means that you're just leveling up, taking it to the next level. And so here's some actionable confidence builders. Reframe failure, right? Failure is feedback. I want you to really see failure as just feedback. I know we've been taught that failure is something that's the end of all end, and that's false. I know because I went through failure thinking that it was the end of all ends. In the Philippines where I was born, I failed kindergarten for coloring outside the lines of a photo. I had this photo, I kept coloring it outside the lines. I was given a brand new photo to color, and I still did the same. I was coloring outside the lines, and because of that, I had to move to another school and redo kindergarten all over again because I failed. And for the longest time, I just felt like anything I touched was an instant failure. And that led into my adult life. So I don't want you to go through what I went through. Failure is feedback. And every successful person that you have witnessed in the media have gone through their fair share of failures. One story that I love sharing is the lady who created Hello Kitty. Now I'm a huge Hello Kitty lover. I love all things Hello Kitty, but I recently found out that when she created Hello Kitty, she was rejected 47 times. 47 times before Sanrio finally said, "Okay, let's try this." And they launched a coin purse with a Hello Kitty design that you see, and she didn't have a mouth, right? And when they launched it, it sold out, and then they expanded it to other products, right? Like household items, trinkets, things here and there. There's cafes all over the world, and because of that, it's now an $80 billion industry, right? $80 billion, all because this woman decided not to give up. Even if she got rejected 47 times, she knew that she had something special. And the reason why she was rejected was because they thought it was too simple. But that simplicity actually led to an $80 billion business, global business. So failure is feedback. Sometimes it may take a couple of times to figure it out, but it doesn't mean it's a bad idea. It doesn't mean that it's the end of all ends. Speak first in meetings. Small move, big shift. So, like I mentioned, a lot of women are afraid to share their ideas. I want you to share those ideas. I know we tend to overthink and think, oh, it might sound stupid, but to the other people, it might be the greatest idea in the world. And at least it's better to share your idea and get rejected than to regret it. So I want you to start just speaking up in meetings. Use affirmations rooted in truth, not fluff. So I say three affirmations to myself when I'm dealing with self doubt. I just say, I am loved, I am worthy, and I am enough. And I keep telling myself that until my confidence comes back. And of course, using affirmations when for the first time when you've never shared them at all sounds sounds weird because we've never done it before. It's going to be uncomfortable. But the more you keep practicing it, the better you become. Claim your wins out loud. Practice makes powerful. I think, sharing our wins is so important, no matter how bad or good they may be. So I want you to share those wins, right? I want you to, share it out. Even create a win, like a brag list if you need it, because being able to do that, it helps us become confident, and it also attracts more blessings into our life. Like I remember one time I had to do a presentation during the lockdown that happened 5 years ago, and I had an older computer, so um, I couldn't have a regular virtual background on my Zoom. I had to buy a green screen to have the virtual background. And so when I was trying to set that up, the virtual background part actually went on my shirt instead of the background. And so I thought, oh my God, this is going to be a hot mess. And so I pressed a couple buttons and it worked. And I was so happy. Like I was so happy. I was telling all the people that I know, like I finally figured this out. It was the best thing ever. And so no matter how big or small that win is, claim it, share it, brag it out. Find allies and mentors. Don't go at it alone, right? I think this is so important because a lot of us feel like we have to be alone in this journey, but you don't have to. There's a reason why you attended this conference is because you're seeking support, you want to learn from other people, and that's totally fine. And so for me, it's so important to do things together because it's better together, and doing things together is how we can make changes, create history, and break barriers. So find those mentors and allies that's in your industry. Owning your narrative. Your story is your superpower. Define your values, share your lived experience, lead with authenticity. Don't wait for permission, write your own leadership script. I think this is so important because, especially for women, a lot of us feel like we don't have a story. Like, who am I to share my story? No one's going to listen to me. And that's so far from it. Your story does have power. Your lived experience helps you become the person that you are. And when you share it out to the world, you'd be surprised who could relate to it. And it could change someone's life for the better. And so I never want you to discount your story because it is powerful. And as women, we definitely need more women out there sharing their stories. You know, I've interviewed over 800 women. I've spoken to a lot of women with their stories, and it breaks my heart when they feel like their story doesn't matter or it doesn't sound important when it's far from the truth. So I want you to start sharing your story. And if you don't know how to do that, there's really a simple way to do it. It's like a 3-step process. Just share what your life was like before, what was the aha moment that made you do things differently, and what your life is like now. And when you use that constantly in every story, in sharing your story, it's so impactful. It's the same strategy that I use in my podcast when I interviewed over 800 women to date. So don't be afraid to share your story out there. So the ripple effect of representation. When you rise, others rise with you. Representation isn't just about being seen, it's about your visibility unlocks for others. So, the ripple effect of representation. Visibility inspires. When people see someone who looks like them, leads like them, or comes from a similar background in a position of power, it sends a powerful signal. This is possible for you too. Your presence becomes a mirror, and for many, it's the first time they've seen themselves reflected in leadership. This is why it's so important to show up, to speak up, to take up space, because it helps, current and future generations see what's possible. It helps us build more leaders, more women breaking barriers, creating history, and in turn, hopefully, bringing out down the years as to when um, total gender parity will be achieved. Your voice disrupts. Speaking up challenges the status quo. Diverse voices bring different questions, perspective, and solutions, ones that are often missing from traditional power structures. Every time you use your voice, you create space for others to do the same. I know it's easier said than done to speak up, but in order for things to change, we have to go out there and speak up, share a different views, share different perspectives. Because if we don't, it's going to be the same thing over and over again, right? They say insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. If you want different results, we have to do things differently. And having that courage to speak up can be a big confidence booster. And like I said, you don't have to do this alone. You can have a support system who will cheer you on, who will guide you through it to help you speak up and claim your voice. Confidence multiplies. Confidence is contagious. When one person steps into their power, it gives others permission to do the same. Your courage becomes someone else's turning point. What starts as a bold act can ripple into a culture shift. Yeah, sometimes it just takes one person to do this, right? And it creates that domino effect. Empowered people empower others. True leadership isn't about being the only one at the top. It's about holding the door open for others. You don't have to be perfect or have it all figured out. You just have to be visible, real, and willing to lead out loud. I think this is so important. I think sometimes we still have this narrow definition of what a leader should look like, and being a leader is like, you know, stepping out, being the first to step out and helping others, you know, bring, and then being able to help others do the same, right? walk each other side by side. Leaders make mistakes. We course correct a lot of things, but the more we keep doing it, the better we get at it. So, for me, leadership is about bringing everybody else, walking each other side by side. Sometimes being the first one to start something, even if we have no idea what that looks like. So here's some final takeaways. Confidence is a skill, not a personality trait. Culture shapes us, but we can reshape it. Visibility isn't vanity, it's leadership. Your voice matters more than your doubts. So here's your next move. What will you do to step up? Start sharing your ideas. Mentor someone with less access. Set a boundary that honors your worth. I know setting boundaries can be really hard, but sometimes it's important to say no to the things that don't serve you so you can allow room for the things that you deserve. Own a win out loud today. You have everything it takes. Now take up space. And so when you choose to be visible, you light the path for someone else. And so if you'd like to connect with me, this is my QR code. So it'll go to all my social media, my books, my websites, and other resources. So I hope you enjoyed this. And if you have any questions, we have some time for questions. I want to leave some time so the audience can have some questions, or we can even just have a little bit of a chat. So I'm gonna exit the full screen. And yeah, I hope everybody enjoyed that. Does anybody have any questions? Oh, all right. Let's see if there's anything on the chat. Yeah, feel free. You can put it on the chat so that we have a little bit of time. If not, I do have. Oh, let's see. Christina mentioned as a Filipino American, I totally feel that. I'm also from the Philippines. Great job. Thank you so much. There's actually one story I would love to share, especially being women in aviation, since we have a little bit of time. I interviewed one lady who was on my podcast, who was actually the first armless pilot. So she flies a plane with her feet, which I thought was wild to hear. But the only reason why she is the first armless pilot was because she was born with no arms. And a lot of us feel like we have a limitation, but here's a woman who has an actual limitation, and it never stopped her from doing the things that she wanted. And she realized that the moment she felt like her true self was when she took off her prosthetic arms and walked into the bus as her full authentic self. And because of that, she's been able to speak around the world, have books, and fly a plane with her feet, which to me was so inspiring, right? Because even myself, I feel like I have limitations, but then when I hear her story, I have no excuses. So, and it was just really inspiring to hear her story. I was really just honored to, um, just hear what she did and the things she's been able to do. I mean, she has a black belt in karate, she surfs, she drives, all with her feet. So, as women, we are more capable and powerful than we realize. And sometimes I met her. Oh, that's awesome. Yes, she is Filipino too. Um, I haven't met her in person yet, but yeah, sometimes we feel like, how we see ourselves really holds us back. And when we can learn to connect how we see ourselves and our capability, we become invincible. And this is why it's so important to bridge that confidence gap so we can go out there and create history, do amazing things, especially in this industry. So yeah, so I hope that story kind of helped you out and realize that you can do this, right? And from Tina, thank you so much. How can we distinguish between healthy self-doubt and imposter syndrome that needs to be addressed? That's a great question. For me, I think, I mean, we all go through, we all go through imposter syndrome and self doubt, and it's gonna come up, all at times where especially when we're leveling up. But if there's a time where it's just constant, like to the point where it really stops you from moving forward, then I think that needs to be addressed, right? Like, you're so afraid because you have so much imposter syndrome and self doubt that you're just too afraid to take action. Then you need to you seek help, right? Whether it's talking to someone to address that, to get to the root cause, because sometimes it could be our trauma, right? We have a lot of trauma that we deal with and we don't talk about, and a lot of people will always ask me, well, how do you build confidence? And I'm always asking them back, like, what is really the root cause that is stopping you from building confidence? So, like, for me, failing kindergarten in the Philippines was a big deal for me, right? It really stunted my growth. I never wanted to do anything, or even if I wanted to think of something to do or launch, I just thought to myself, I was an instant failure. It's not going to work. And I had to work through that to realize, failure isn't final. Failure is just feedback. We all go through feedback. We all go through failures. There's, 9 out of 10 times whatever we put out there is not going to work. And so we have to be okay with that, right? Like I mentioned, the lady who created Hello Kitty 47 times for her idea not to work, and it turned into an $80 billion global business. So for me, I think when it really stops you from taking action, and that definitely needs to be addressed, and maybe go a lot deeper, right? Like, what is really stopping you? What is that? Why is it? What is the root cause? It could be something from your childhood. Also, it could be not just our own traumas. It could be, the traumas of our parents, our grandparents, because intergenerational trauma is very prevalent. So sometimes it's not just even you. It could be just your upbringing or your parents or grandparents. So I hope that answered your question, Tina, because I know we all go through it. It's not always easy, and yeah, just having the support helps a lot. Anybody else have questions? I'm not sure if you're allowed to mute, but feel free to unmute if you can to ask a question or share in the chat, or even share one thing you've learned on today's talk that you're gonna use in your own journey. I'll share a little bit more nuggets since we have a little bit of time. One of the things I love sharing, that's also part of my book, is the strategy called Ready, Fire, Aim, right? And I use this in my own journey. You start before you're ready, you take action, and you course correct as you go. I know a lot of us, we want to make sure everything is 110% perfect, but that's not going to happen. I did the same thing. I wanted to make sure everything was 10% perfect, and I just kept waiting. I just kept perfecting it, and it delayed my own success for 5 years. But when you start going ready, fire, aim, you start before you're ready, take action, and you course correct as you go. That's how you're able to get the results. And because I was able to do that, it led me to speaking on different stages. I've been able to write not one but two books for Wiley, which is one of the top 5 publishers, which I never thought I would ever do, which is like really wild. I actually got to visit their office yesterday here in New Jersey, and it's something that needs to be reminded. Like, when you start something, it's not going to be perfect. It's going to suck. It's going to be messy. You might fall down a couple times more than you realize, but if you keep going and start, fixing it little by little, you will get there. So that's another thing I'd love to share, because it's so important to remind ourselves that it doesn't need to be perfect, right? I'm sure a lot of us feel like we need to have everything perfect to a T before we start anything, but that's far from the truth. And if you even listen to people that you admire, they just had an idea and just went for it. And they didn't really have a strategy. They just decided to do it, figure it out, and then that's where and then they were able to become successful. So I hope having the ready, fire, aim strategy can help you out, and help you in your journey as well. So I think we have a little bit more time. If anybody has maybe one one or two more questions, please let me know. Um, Would love to hear from you, or even if you had something to share, feel free to unmute. And yeah, just share. Anybody? I know sometimes it's hard to ask questions. We're afraid. But I always say if you don't ask, the answer is always no. I think it's better to ask the question than not ask because, you might not be the only person who is asking that same question. So, confidence is about taking those small steps. This could be that small step that you can start doing. I know for me, being able to ask questions has helped me just move forward in everything that I did. Even if it felt like asking the wrong question or asking the stupid question, I'll even start with that. This may sound like a stupid question, and I'll ask it anyways. So, for me, it's really important to be curious, being able to learn something new, being able to ask those right questions so you can get the answers, and be able to utilize it in your own journey. So we do have, I think, a couple minutes more before session is over. I hope everyone enjoyed it and learned something new. I know you have a couple more talks for the rest of the day. It's Let's see. I think I had one more. Yeah, thank you again. Do you think these topics are more of a personal challenge or a reflection of systematic issues in work? I think it's a bit of both. Especially for women, we do go through a lot more biases than men, especially in the workplace. But I think it is a bit of both. And learning to work on our mindset is really important, but also being able to address these systematic issues that we still go through in the workplace. That's why having allies, can be a huge, like it's needed in the workplace. Women or even men that can help you be put in those right seats. There's a report I think from McKinsey or another company that mentioned in order for women to break the glass ceiling, we have to go through the broken rung. So what the broken rung means that most women can't even get to the first step of a management role. So if we can't get to the first step of the management role, how can we move forward in the other steps of leadership or in those high corporate roles? So for me, it is a bit of both. I've been, there's people out there who have given me opportunities where I've still hesitated because I didn't think I was good enough. And so I needed to learn to push through that. Even when I was approached to writing my first book with Wiley, I almost said no because I didn't think I was good enough. And so I was really grateful that I had support systems that encouraged me to say yes to do this because especially when I'm all about being visible and showing up, if I didn't write that book, then I become the biggest hypocrite. So to me, yeah, it's a bit of both. So thank you so much for that great question, Tina. And let's see if there's any more. I think that's it. I'll say thank you again for having me. This was such a great session. And I also put my links on the chat if you want to connect with me. And yeah, I hope you enjoy the rest of the presentation or the conference.